Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope all of you are doing well. For years, Darth Dawkins has championed his transcendental argument as being undefeatable, or as being a nuclear-strength worldview. If you have been following my videos recently, you may have noticed that there is a certain repetitiveness in the videos. This is not something being done arbitrarily. I am doing this quite intentionally and deliberately. It makes no difference whatsoever in who the interlocutor is. I had originally planned to continue this series by doing internal critiques of the remaining 3 debates that Darth Dawkins, aka Gary F Milne, had done in the past. This would have been the interactions with Darth Dawkins versus Dr. J. Garfield, Dr. Graham Oppy, and Dr. Felipe Leon. But I had now decided to make a shift in my plans and totally abandon those critiques. I think that continuing in this series would not only be unnecessary. To continue may even be something that some people may find as boring and monotonous. Before we get into the main point of this video, it's important to understand one of Cornelius Van Til's most central ideas. He referred to it as the creator-creature distinction. 1. Van Til was a Christian philosopher and theologian, best known as the founder of presuppositional apologetics. He taught at Westminster Theological Seminary and argued that all reasoning is rooted in fundamental worldview presuppositions, with the Christian worldview being the only one that provides the necessary preconditions for knowledge, logic, and intelligibility. His work heavily emphasized the creator-creature distinction, and the idea that human thought must be grounded in God's revelatory nature. In Van Til's framework, reality is divided into 2 fundamentally different categories: the creator, eternal, necessary, self-sufficient, and ultimate; the creature, everything created, humans, time, space, matter, rationality, morality, and the entire cosmos. These 2 categories are not merely different in degree, but different in kind. The creator is absolute. The creature is derivative. For Van Til, this distinction is the backbone of his presuppositional apologetics. 2. The ontological God as the ultimate foundation. Flowing directly from that distinction, Van Til identifies the pre-creation ontological God as he exists apart from creation, as the fundamental foundation for everything: facts, logic, possibility and impossibility, moral norms, knowledge, interpretation, and the intelligibility of the created order itself. Every argument, every inference, every belief, and every worldview claim is, in Van Til's system, ultimately grounded in the nature of God, sans creation. This ontological foundation is what makes the entire structure work. 3. Gary's version of the ontological God. Now let's address why this matters specifically when evaluating Gary's version of the Christian God. In my analysis, Gary's conception of the ontological God is unintelligible at the most foundational level, and for several consistent reasons. Sovereignty and creatorship, from eternity past, are denied. Gary repeatedly claims that God was not the creator prior to creation. God only became creator at Genesis 1, and God was not sovereign over creation before creation existed. But in classical theism and in Van Til's own system, God's role as creator is an essential, eternal attribute. God's sovereignty is not something that begins, it is something that always is. If God lacks eternal sovereignty or eternal creatorship, he is no longer ultimate or perfect. Thus, his version of God lacks attributes that should be essential, which makes the worldview incoherent by its own standards. 4. Gary's Gumball machine. Multiple definitions of his fundamentalist God. Over time, Gary has offered many versions of what he calls a minimalist definition of God, and he currently has at least 14 different minimalist definitions of his fundamentalist God. All of these definitions are inconsistent, non-overlapping, inconsistent with other presuppositional apologists, including Van Til himself, are sometimes contradictory, and often omit essential attributes that classical theism regards as necessary. When the definition of God shifts this frequently, the worldview loses structural stability. A worldview can't be ultimate on Monday and redefined on Tuesday. Not only does he assert these minimalist definitions, he also tells us that his God possesses essential, indivisible core attributes, and this is currently at least 17 documented, arbitrarily selected core attributes, which he asserts are necessary, essential, and definitional for the Christian God. Unfortunately for Gary, these attributes differ from his earlier lists, differ from other presuppositionalists' lists, differ from Van Til's own list, conflict with definitions provided by authors he cites, conflict with his own statements and claims, and lack any principled standard for why these attributes are essential and not others. A worldview claiming God is the necessary precondition of intelligibility cannot simultaneously rely on arbitrarily assembled, inconsistently applied attribute sets. 5. Why my critique template never needs to change. Finally, this brings us to why my critique methodology remains identical across all the videos I analyze. Because the worldview I'm evaluating appeals to a single, fixed, pre-creation foundation, my critiques target that level exclusively. I do not critique morality, science, induction, ethics, or any other post-creation issues. Those belong to the contingent, created order. The focus is always on the ontological God, before time, before creation, before the cosmos, before contingent reality, before morality, before rationality as humans experience it. Everything downstream, every question he asks, every argument he gives, rests on a foundation that, by his own criteria, does not meet the standard of ultimacy, perfection, or necessity. Therefore, as long as my critique targets Gary's version of the ontological God, sans creation, my methodology and/or approach never needs to be amended, changed, or be edited. The foundation is the same. The target is the same. The contradictions are the same. The attribute deficits are the same. The incoherence is the same. And ultimately, the unintelligibility is the same. Since that pre-creation foundation never changes, my critique template does not need to change either, and my method remains constant and universally applicable. 6. Closing comments. So, when you see me apply a consistent critique structure across multiple videos, it isn't redundancy or something done unintentionally or arbitrarily. It's actually quite the opposite. A worldview that claims everything depends on a single, ultimate, pre-creation foundation can be evaluated using a single, ultimate, pre-creation critique. If that foundation is unintelligible on its own terms, then every argument built on top of it is unintelligible as well, on its own terms, no matter what topic the conversation appears to be about or who the interlocutors are. Thanks for watching, and please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so.
They're professional or not, because they're bluffing. Okay, they got nothing. Why do you think it is that Massimo Pileggi folded like a cheap Boy Scout tent? Guy had 2 earned PhDs. He's an atheist firebrand, and when I got to question him, he folded.
Oh yeah.
Did you see? I didn't even give her the rough and tumble treatment that most atheists will give her. I just simply questioned what she claimed, and she folded like a cheap Boy Scout tent within 2 minutes. By the way, do anyone in here know who Massimo Poligio is, or however you say his name?
No.
He's everyone in the room. He's a atheist philosopher who debated William Lane Craig. I got the guy to fold in 5 minutes. Less than 5 minutes, he folded like a cheap lawn chair.
Who's the guy's name again?
Massimo Poligio. These people are not that smart. Look, in the last 3 weeks, I've just tangled on Discord with around 6 PhD atheists who are world famous for being atheists, and every single one of them folded. Now, explain that. Is it because Darth Dawkins is a genius? No, it's because I asked the right questions. We even had Steve Appel, the guy who proudly, does this podcast, and he does Clubhouse rooms where it says, ask an atheist. Well, I asked an atheist today. I asked Steve Appel to give me a case for why there is no God, and he folded like a cheap lawn chair at a garage sale. He ran away like a scared Girl Scout.